Hello and welcome back everyone. My name is Micah, and in this installment I'll share some interesting imagery I found in a film that we watched recently for our film club, touch briefly on more thoughts as to why Bar Buddy might be a manifestation of Sam's unconscious mind, then I'll be diving into why I believe Sam is the dog killer. While most of the ideas in this video are my own, not all of them are, but I will be expanding on some theories that are already out there. I did join the subreddit for this film, which I have contributed to, but have not posted all of my ideas yet because I really wanted to publish these videos first. So let's get started. For starters, I previously mentioned that I'd started a film club with a group of friends. One of the group's choices this week was Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I'll say it was really interesting and illuminating to watch this film again. I'd seen it many times as a kid, but there were so many references and themes that were lost on me, as I'm sure were for many other children watching it. For one, misogynistic behavior is pervasive throughout the film, particularly the male gaze, but plenty of quotes and actions from characters as well. A particular scene that resonated after having watched Under the Silver Lake many times was this scene where Eddie Valiant gets fed up with Angelo teasing him about working for Toons and shoves a hard-boiled egg in his mouth. I'm unsure if this is a reference from David Robert Mitchell or just a coincidence. What do you all think?
Get this straight, meatball. I don't work for Toons.
Another quick but funny and misleading detail that I'd forgotten about was when Sam is in bed with Sarah watching How to Marry a Millionaire, Sam sees Sarah's bracelet and comments on it.
Is that engraved?
Yeah, from an old boyfriend.
Old boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally, this scene takes on new meaning after a second watch. Sarah literally means that she has an old boyfriend, not a previous boyfriend that she got this from. In my previous video, I'd asserted that the character credited only as Bar Buddy was a manifestation of Sam experiencing hallucinations or delusions as a result of paranoid schizophrenia. I laid out a good amount of evidence in part 3, but upon further watches I noticed a couple of interesting details involving peripheral characters. One character we see in the opening shot of the film in the coffee shop, as the camera pans, we only see a few male characters, but this one stuck out to me. As a part of my explanation that Sam's friend was a character that only he can see, I noted that Sam appears to populate his delusions with things that are familiar, significant, or that he and the audience have seen before. This guy's outfit echoes that of Bar Buddy in the first couple of scenes that we meet him. Between the first and second meeting, there isn't too much difference in this outfit. However, on their third encounter, I noticed something even more distinct than the first outfit. When Sam is in the graveyard watching the film where he meets two of the shooting stars, the recruiter wearing the Native American headdress is wearing a shirt with cartoon ducks in a small swimming pool. A few scenes later, we see similar looking ducks on Bar Buddy's sweater, not in a swimming pool but at the beach. Another detail I noticed here are Bar Buddy's tattoos. One is a digital watch tattoo, a theory about that in the next video, but also hearts resembling those of Link's life counters in Zelda, as we know Sam has seen these before in Nintendo Power magazine. Again, I believe these are examples of Sam populating his hallucinations with things that are familiar to him, or things that he's seen out in the real world, making it more difficult for him and us to decipher what is real and what is not. Okay, let's talk about why I believe that Sam is the dog killer. Firstly, I'll call back to part 3 of this series. So when Sam and Bar Buddy are at the bar, the friend brings up the dog killers. He says it pluralistically, and Sam seems a bit confused.
Have you heard about these dog killers? There's more than one.
Who knows?
Sam knows there's only one dog killer because it's him. He's disinterested in that conversation because it's not a mystery to him, and he doesn't like dogs as he was bitten by one when he was a kid.
So you a cat person or a dog person?
It's hard to say. I got bit by my grandparents' terrier when I was a kid, so I guess I'm a little bit afraid of him.
And the association that he's created between dogs and women. Additionally, if this friend is someone that Sam has created as a coping mechanism, it would be easy to mix up in his brain because these two characters are one and the same, especially if this is a recent manifestation. Considering he isn't given a name, and there's no indication of how long they've known each other, suggesting that there are two killers when it's just Sam. While this may be a dramatization of how people suffering from schizophrenia experience symptoms, in the realm of A Beautiful Mind or even Fight Club, it might be difficult to portray that without outright explaining it, something that the director has never wanted to do. For more on that topic, please check out part 3 of this series. Next, I'm going to refer to a detail that we noticed after watching a few times and began to suspect that Sam was indeed responsible for dogs being killed around Silver Lake. In the opening scene, Sam is looking at the girl trying to clean the "Beware the Dog Killer" message off the window to no avail. As he turns around, the camera angle switches, and for a very brief moment, you can see that the G on the word dog has an arrow pointing directly at Sam, quickly followed by Sam framed in the window with the message written on it. For those who may think, well, that's just how they stylistically decided to draw the hook on the G, consider the way that it was written isn't seen on any other "Beware the Dog Killer" writing for the rest of the film, including on the drawing in the zine under the Silver Lake. However, we do see this framing again at the end of the film as Sam passes in front of the coffee shop. You can only see it briefly before Sam's arm covers it up, but this doesn't appear to be an oversight, but quite deliberate. Additionally, here, right before the camera pans, we get our first view of the shirt depicting "Beware the Dog Killer" right before the camera gets to Sam. Expanding on that, when Sam is at the purgatory party after Sam gets nailed in the balls by the girl in the bathroom, we see Sam walking through the party, and just as he passes this guy with the "Beware the Dog Killer" shirt, he motions with his hands to the message on his shirt. I mean, he's just an extra, right? But taking direction from David Robert Mitchell, this was also quite deliberate, and it's happening just as Sam is parallel directly behind him. Now, some people might say, well, this is also happening as Alan is coming into the frame as well. My response to that would be, there's no clear indication that anybody else in the film is the dog killer, and we don't get to see any specific details about their existence in the movie suggesting that they might be the dog killer. Okay, we know that Sam carries dog biscuits with him, but why? His explanation to the homeless king is that he used to like a girl that had a dog a long time ago, and he wanted to be able to give it a treat if they ever got back together. Now, I asserted in my previous video that I believe this to be a lie. And to that, some might say, well, Sam begins crying and appears to show genuine painful emotion. Part of this is likely fear of being caught or even shame, but I think there may be another explanation. Now, we're never told how Sam has made money in the past, but it may make sense to conclude that Sam moved to Los Angeles from Michigan because he was an aspiring actor. Some clues to this possibility? His love for film, especially those in the realm of Hollywood's golden age. Also, his ex-girlfriend is clearly an aspiring actress or model, as we gather from their interaction at the party where Sam meets Millicent.
I'm really glad it's getting out there. You know, I was working hard. I gotta keep trying.
As well as her appearance on the billboard throughout the movie. It seems that his ex was likely getting some work, even if she hadn't gotten a big break yet. Sam, when talking to Bar Buddy at Bar Buddy's house...
You ever feel like you fucked up somewhere a long time ago? You're living the wrong life, like a bad version of the life you're supposed to have. I used to think that I was gonna be someone that like people cared about. Like maybe do something important.
He says this while overlooking the Los Angeles skyline. Sam's dreams haven't come to fruition, and he wishes that he could have been someone that people cared about, playing into his narcissistic view of himself. Okay, back to the homeless king. If Sam is or was an aspiring actor, it wouldn't be so far-fetched to consider the possibility that he's showcasing his acting ability in this moment. He pleads his case to the homeless king in a relatively monotone voice, but also gives several glances at the homeless king reminiscent of his interaction with the author when Sam realizes that someone might be getting closer to his truth, that he is the thief responsible for lots of missing musical instruments as well as being the dog killer.
I wanted to give the dog a treat and rub its ears. Just the way I used to, and then everything would be good again.
Lost and found signs for dogs, humans, musical instruments over the past 2 years.
And if it does seem far-fetched to you that Sam would take the time to learn how to cry on cue, consider that actors have to be able to do this, without question. If you've ever seen bad actors try and fail, it's pretty obvious. Also, Sam spends hours and hours creating and deciphering codes, and if you take a closer look at his notes from this, it's pretty unnerving. so it wouldn't be strange for him to practice his craft if he's an aspiring actor. To expand further on the reference to the author, I have to refer to a scene that many people seem puzzled by, myself included, until I started writing this video script. So Sam sees the zine Under the Silver Lake and is immediately so interested in it that he wants to give the bookstore clerk $5 to pass his phone number along to the author, an attempt to get in touch with him. The prominent page that we see when Sam opens the zine is Beware the Dog Killer, and the zine asserts that the author will reveal who is behind all of the disappearances and unsolved crimes. The clerk is hesitant and ultimately caves without taking Sam's money. Okay, why is Sam so interested in meeting the author? I mean, he says that he likes the author's work and wants to talk to him, but are there ulterior motives here? Let me explain. I believe Sam is concerned and afraid that someone is indeed following or keeping tabs on him, but only in the name of self-preservation. Sam wants to meet the author to gauge if he knows that Sam is the dog killer and the thief. So that puzzling scene? It's when Sam gets a phone call from the author while walking home from getting groceries on the path behind his complex. He has the sense that someone is watching him, promptly followed by his phone ringing and the author telling him he's working on a new issue of Under the Silver Lake and to stop by the following day. Sam sees a figure following him that appears to teleport from one end of the trail to another, and then inexplicably we never see this figure again. Sam is then sprayed by the skunk, perhaps symbolizing that someone might know that he's the dog killer and that he's been made. This figure is embodying Sam's paranoia that someone is following him and he's concerned that the author knows too much, hence why he wants to meet him. It just so happens that prior to their meeting, Sam broke into Sarah's apartment and saw the keep quiet symbol on her wall. This spurns a totally different kind of conversation when at the author's house, and when the author says that lately he thinks that the owl's kiss has something to do with everything, Sam even laughs at this idea despite being someone that believes that there are conspiracies and hidden messages all around him.
Lately, I just assumed that the owl's kiss has something to do with everything.
I'm not so sure about that.
Okay, let's talk about Sam's one confirmed dream sequence again. In part 2 of this series, I broke down this dream and possible events that happened in Sam's waking life that were manifesting in his dreams and hallucinations. So referring to a few things here, the dog treats. Sam feeds Sarah's dog a biscuit before Sarah walks out of her apartment unexpectedly. In his dream, we see both the dog treats on the ground like a trail of breadcrumbs, followed by Sarah's dog dead on the ground as it's been stabbed or cut open. We've established that Sam is populating his delusions, dreams, and hallucinations with things that are in his mind already. So here we're seeing Sam's original intent with Sarah's dog. He intended to kill it. Although I do believe he may have tried by poisoning it with the treat but had further intentions but was interrupted. One might ask, why would he poison a dog and then promptly proceed to kill it anyhow? Perhaps for the very reason of potentially getting interrupted or being seen. It could simply be seen as a kind gesture. He was just giving the dog a treat. We find out later that the dog is in fact dead and found in Sarah's purse once the fiery wreckage of Jefferson Sevens' car is found.
Apparently the remains of a dog, a breed known as a Bichon Frise, were found in the purse of one of the victims.
I have a hard time believing that Sarah allowed her dog to die, but I could certainly be wrong about that, considering the remains of 4 other people were found in the wreckage as well. Regardless, I believe Sam was showing us his original intentions in this dream sequence. Next, let's talk about Sam's problem with rejection, his association between women that reject or persecute him and dogs, and again, his smell. So we know that Sam hates rejection. I mean, most all of us do. We see him several times in the film get rejected or assume that he's going to get laid or have a connection with someone, and then when it doesn't happen, he's visibly perplexed, angry, or feels persecuted. So why does Sam associate women who reject him with dogs? We know Sam doesn't like dogs, as we mentioned earlier in the video, having been bitten by one when he was young.
Is that a dog?
It's a coyote.
Not gonna bite me, right?
He's equally afraid of being hurt by women as they hold great power over him in the form of sex, or rather, withholding that from him. So several times throughout the film, we see Sam feeling persecuted or delusional about that rejection in the form of women barking at him.
Not really.
That'll work. I'll be outside your place in 10 minutes.
The first time I watched the movie, I was so put off and confused by this, but upon further viewings, it makes a lot of sense that he would make this connection and show us in the way that he sees it. Another connection he makes with mostly women, having a particularly sensitive sense of smell.
What's that smell? You smell so bad. What's that smell?
Oh, I don't know. I smell it too. You smell that? Smells like skunk.
From the beginning of the film, we hear the actress comment on a smell, which he blames on skunks. This is before he's even been sprayed or made as being the dog killer. This trend continues through the film with mostly women commenting on it, although the homeless king appears to be the only male character to mention it.
You don't have a good smell about you.
And the way he says it comes off as having deeper meaning than just Sam physically smells bad, but that there's something off about him. Okay, this video was already en route to being longer than I wanted it to be, so for the sake of time, let's do a speed round. When Sam wakes up from his dream sequence of Sarah's dog being dead on the trail, he has blood on his hands. There are dog bowls and a dog bed at Bar Buddy's house, but no dog. Hallucinatory manifestation. Sam is framed in several shots of graffiti saying "Beware the dog killer." He murders a songwriter and then defends himself to Millicent after she says anyone that could hurt a dog wouldn't think twice about hurting a person. He seems to have petty cash, perhaps because of the throwaway line about muggings coupled with dog killings.
It's bad enough to get mugged, but then you gotta watch some dude stab your dog.
And the TV show that's playing when Sam wakes up talks about gassing a dog at the pound if it can't find a forever home.
What if their owner don't show up?
I think they gas.
Huh?
That's all for this installment, folks. Feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And as always, take care and keep your eyes open.